Hello everyone, my name is Steve and welcome back to episode 3 of Sneaky Programming. Today we're going to be jumping into functions and a lot of code optimization. So let's get right into it. To start out, we're going to make a new function. It's going to be for division. So again, private float, just like we did for multiply. But instead we're going to do divide, float x, float y, return x divided by y. Again, this is essentially the exact same thing we have up here. The difference being this symbol has changed and the name of it has changed. And right away we can use this by saying on a new line, answer equals divide AB console.writeLine answer. So let's take a look at what's actually happening here. Essentially, we have these floats that we made in the last video, and we have this float that we made in the last video for the answer. We're assigning the answer to the multiply, just like we did in the last video, and then we write what that is. And then, we do away with what the answer was holding, and we give it a new value. We give it the value of the new function, divide. So now answer has 0.5 divided by 2.5. Whereas it used to have multiplied by 2.5, and right here, it's going to output something different to what it outputs right here. So let's run this and take a look at that. And as you can see, we have 1.25 for the multiplication right here, and then we have 0.2 for the division right here. So that's all working, and that's something to pay mind to. A variable can be overwritten if you write it again, but this won't change because this happened before we overwrit it. Now then, let's go ahead and copy this, and we'll paste it down here twice. The first one we're going to change the name to add, and the second one we're going to change the name to subtract. In subtract, of course, we change it to a minus, and in add we change it to a plus. Now we can do any mathematical function we want to execute. We now can through setting answer to multiply, divide, or add, or subtract, and it's going to work the same way. But as you can see, we already have to start scrolling to see all our code. And we can actually condense this into one function. And we're going to use that making use of a new variable type. So for now, go ahead and delete this code here, and all of this stuff. Now make private, void, math, open close, open close. In here for parameters, we're going to start with the same things. We're going to say float x and float y, but we're going to add a third parameter of type char. Char stands for character, and it's any character on the keyboard, like this S, or this 1 parentheses, or this semicolon, or this 5. Any of those can be one character. And in character, we're going to be calling it the type, because this is the type of math we're going to be doing. Now, essentially, what we're going to end up having is we're going to say answer equals math, right? Put A in, put B in, none of that's changed, but now we also have to put in a character. So we signify a character with these single quotes right here, and the character we're going to put in is just the plus sign. Just like that. That'll be fine. Now, I made a mistake here. This is actually supposed to be float, right? Very simple. You can fix that. And now we have a red line because we're not returning anything. So let's go ahead and fix that. In here, we're going to say float answer return answer. Now, this might be a bit confusing because you can see up here we already have something called answer. This is actually something completely different. It's localized to this function. This answer is localized to this one. They're actually separate from one another and won't interfere. But it's actually a pretty bad programming practice to be naming your variables the same thing. If at all you can avoid that. So instead of naming it answer again, we're just going to name it result. Again, it can still work, it's still descriptive, but it's a different name and it's just easier to understand. Now, we have the type of math we want to do. If we want it to be a plus, we put a plus in there. We can put a minus, we can put a star, and we can put a divide. So we have what kind we want to do stored in type. But how do we decide that if it's a plus, we do addition, and if it's a minus, we do subtraction? Well, we do that using what are called conditional statements. And they're pretty simple to write, actually. You type if, open parentheses, close parentheses, open and close curly brackets, just like that. In these parentheses, you put the condition. So if type equal sign, space, single quotes, plus. Now, what is this saying? Well, this is saying if the value of the type, again, not the variable itself, if the value stored in type is a plus sign, if it's equal to a plus sign, then execute the code that we write in here. Code here. Alright? Now, the reason we have two equal signs, this means is equal to in programming, right? This single one is setting equal to. It's setting answer equal to the result, right? Here we're saying if type is equal to, not setting it equal to the plus. So we use 2 here instead. Now, here we want to simply say result equals x plus y, right? We're checking if we are performing addition, perform the addition, and return the result. Pretty simple, right? Now, if we want to do this again for subtraction, we could copy all of this and change this over to a subtraction. And that'll work fine for this particular instance. But generally speaking, it's a good practice to, instead of saying if again, we type something else entirely. Instead, on this bracket line right here, type else if type equals minus. Now what's that saying? Well, this will check if this condition is true. Right now this condition is true because type is a plus, right? So this will be true. So this code will run, and then it's going to jump down here and start running this code. However, if this is false, so else, if else, otherwise, if it is not true, then we want to run this. So if this is not true, that's the else, and this is true, the if, then run this code, which will simply say result equals x minus y. And we can do this again for the rest of them. Just like this. And now we want to change this minus to say times, and divide to say divide. Now, this will work. This will work just fine. We can pass in the type. If it's a plus, it'll do addition. But we have a problem. You might have noticed it down here, the red line. This is because we didn't actually assign a value to the result. Now, I know you may be thinking, well, yes, we did. We did it here, we did it here, we did it here, we did it here. But what you have to take into account in programming is you need to be very specific with your instructions. We didn't actually take into account that maybe someone will type the wrong thing and put, say, a percentage sign. Well, now none of this code will run because this if will be false, so it skips down to here. This is false, this skips down here, skips down here, skips down here. None of that's true, so it doesn't run any of this, and result doesn't have an output. It's not got anything to return. So we have to put in a failsafe. So my failsafe, usually, all you have to do, come up here and assign it a value. And the value you want to assign, it has to be specific. So we can do 0.0 bunch of nines f. Alright? That is a failsafe that we can come back to later and say, well, if we know that if we get this particular string of numbers, that something went wrong. But for now, nothing should go wrong. In fact, all we should get is 0.5 passed in through A, 2.5 passed in through B, the plus sign passed in for the type. So for x, we will have 0.5, y, we will have 2.5, and type, we will have plus. We'll say if type is plus, result is equal to x plus y, 0.5 plus 2.5. It will skip past all the rest of this because this one was true, and it will return the result to answer. So let's go ahead and make sure that works by just typing console.writeLine answer, just like that, and run the program. And there you go. As you can see, it works perfectly. 0.5 plus 2.5, that's 3. We know that's working. Now we can go in here and change it to times again, run it again, and we've got 1.25. It changed because instead of running the plus, we're now running the multiply, which gives us 0.5 times 2.5, which is in fact 1.25. We can change this over to a divide sign and it will divide for us, 0.2. We can change it to the subtraction sign and it will subtract for us. This is what's so great about having functions, that you can just change one parameter and it will automatically execute this code and give you a different result. Now, just before we wrap up this video, I want to talk about some more variable types. So far, we've looked at the variable type char for character, float for decimal numbers, and integer for whole numbers. There are a lot more variable types out there, so let's take a look at one of them. This one is called string. We'll call it string name equals Bob. Alright, so a string is a type of variable which is a bunch of characters put together. It's a string of characters. Hence, we use double quotes instead of single quotes. We have multiple, and we can put any characters in between these double quotes, and we can have as many or as few as we want, and that is a string. Now, let's look at another one. We can use a bool. Bool is short for Boolean, and we can say true or we can say false with a Boolean. A Boolean only has one or the other as its options. So we can say bool daytime equals true. And now we know that it is in fact daytime. We set this to false, we know it is not daytime. It can only be true or false. If you set it to other things, like trying to make it a float, that's not going to work. It has to be true or false. And that is all we're going to be looking at in today's video. Next time, we're going to be diving into user input. So if you liked the video, leave a like. Again, any questions, comments, anything, leave them in the comments section or join the Discord today, and have a great day, everyone. Bye.